There we go. Are we live? Am I live? Let me know. Hey everybody, I'm so excited. There's so many people here. You guys got a little ahead of me, so I'm just going to run down. Brenda's here. Someone here from Vietnam. Hello. I don't know what time it is where you are. Thank you for coming. Marianne's here. Linda. Hi. Penny. Candy, Colorado. Sudbury. Hey, Kathy. Kathy's here from Sudbury. New York. Pennsylvania, Minnesota. New Brunswick. This is so exciting. Oh, Stephen and Walter are here. Hey, guys. They just got a brand new Lucy, and they're very happy with her. So many people. Florida. Sue's. Workington. Yes, we're going to discuss that, actually. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about. So we'll get to that first before we start mucking with the pantographs. Georgia and Florida. Sherry's here. Sandy's here. Hey, Sandy. London. Everybody. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you for coming. This is my very first live, so who knows what's going to happen. I'm assuming you can all hear me okay. Let me know if you can't. I did double check my mic, but you never know. North Carolina. Okay. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tracy Russell, and I'm in Whitby, Ontario, Canada. And I have Whirls and Swirls Quilting, obviously. And I am an APQS dealer and educator, as well as a technician. My first passion is free motion quilting, but there are lots of ways to quilt a quilt. Some people use computers, some people free motion from the front, and some people use pantographs from the back. So everything kind of ties in together. There's a few things I want to talk to you about when it comes to using pantographs on your quilt, and then afterwards I'm going to demonstrate and show you some really cool things that you can do with pantographs you already have at home to change them, tweak them, and make them your own so they're one of a kind. Okay? So I will direct you to 3 videos that I already have up on my YouTube channel. We have Pantographs Made Easy, and that actually teaches you how to set up the pantograph, find your boundaries, and most importantly, set the advancing marks so that every advance that you do is perfectly spaced all the time from the top to the bottom. That one, when you're looking for it, is going to look like this. How fancy am I? The next one I want to encourage you to watch is the 5 things to consider before you quilt the quilt. There's a lot of information in that one, except for I didn't talk about orientation, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight, okay? And the other one is loading a long arm the easy way, where I actually teach you how to load the quilt, how the way I load the quilt anyways. Doesn't mean it's the right way, it's just the way I've always done it, and it works for me. So hopefully you will find those helpful. Do not go and watch them now. Just stay here, stick with me, and watch them later. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. I just hit 16,000 subscribers tonight. It flicked from the $9.99 over to the 16,000 and then 1601, and that just, thank you. That was a pretty exciting thing for me. So subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, all the things the YouTube people say so that you get all the notifications and all that kind of stuff. And this is going to be a regular thing now. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not making any big promises about all the that kind of stuff, but it's going to be an ongoing thing, this live on YouTube thing. And I'm just here to share what I know and hopefully make all your learning curves flatter and easier, and just show you some tricks and tips, give you some tips and teach you some things. Okay? All right. So, like I said, in the one video that I have about things you need to consider before you quilt your quilt, the one thing we didn't talk about, which is really important, is the orientation of the pantograph versus the quilt, or in combination with the quilt. Okay? So for pantographs that are basically texture, and I've got some examples. Now, all the pantographs that I talk about tonight are all from Urban Elements, and you'll find them all on urbanaelements.com. I have not been paid to show anybody these pantographs. I just picked them out of my stash, and because they each give me something that I can show you. But that's where you'll be able to find them all. And if you have any questions about them, you can put it in the comments, and we'll get to that, or we'll talk about them later. Okay? So I've got a couple of pantographs here that are just texture. So this one, and I've just hacked it off the end of my pantograph. So this one is called Scribbles. I believe it's Patricia Ritter's design, and it's just a simple meander. So it's just texture, okay? Doesn't matter whether this is traveling on the quilt edge to edge, sideways and horizontally, or whether it's traveling up and down the quilt vertically. It's not going to make any difference. It's going to look pretty much the same both ways. When it comes to loading the quilt, if my quilt is not directional and if my pantograph is not directional, I will always load my quilt lengthways. And when I say lengthways, I mean the length of the quilt will come across the width of my frame, and the width of my quilt will go down. What that does is it gets the quilt finished quicker. My rows are going to be a little longer, but I'll have less advances. So say my quilt is 60 by 90, and I know that's an odd size, it's just for reference. If I'm quilting 90 inches this way, it's going to take me just a minute or two longer to actually quilt that row, but if I've only got 60 that way, I may only have 5 or 6 advances, or even 4 or 5 advances, depending on the size of my pantograph. If I load my quilt vertically, so that my 60 is this way, the width of my frame, and I've got the 90 inches going that way, yeah, my rows are shorter, so they don't take quite as long to do, but I will have way more advances if I'm trying to advance through 90 inches rather than 60. Does that make sense? You do have to pay attention to the pantograph that you want to use when you're going to do that, though, in either situation. So something like Scribbles isn't going to make any difference, so I would load it lengthwise. If I've got, this one here is called Any Which Way, and we're going to use these particular pantographs in a little while as well. This one is called Any Which Way, and it's very simple, just curves, curve, 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 curve. It's got lots of possibilities, but again, it doesn't matter to me if it's going this way or this way. It's going to put the same amount of thread in the quilt, whether I'm going lengthwise or widthwise, and it's not really going to look any different. Now, if we take a pantograph like this one is called Azure. I hope I pronounced that right. And it's by Patricia Ritter. And it's sort of a feathery, curly sort of thing. It's very pretty. Personally, I would like this pantograph to run up and down the quilt vertically. So if it's laying on the bed, these feathers are traveling either up the bed to the top or from the top down to the bottom, rather than going across the quilt like this. I'm not saying it's not going to look nice going across the quilt, but for me, I think I would rather have them travel up or down the length of the quilt. So I would then load my quilt lengthways this way, so that when I'm stitching them out, the feathers are traveling up the quilt. Another one, this one's really cute. It's called Tree Change. It's by Naomi Hines. And it's kind of modern and funky, but obviously this one only has one way to go, because nobody wants trees on their quilt climbing up the sides of the borders, right? So this is going to have to run horizontally on the quilt. Therefore, you're going to load your quilt top with the width this way and the length that way. I will follow with, say you were going to use a pantograph such as this, or maybe Doodles the dog, which is dog faces. Isn't that cute? You need to make sure that when you've laid this out on your frame or on your table at the back, if your quilt top is directional, a panel. You've got a panel in the middle with some puppies and all this kind of stuff with some borders and all that kind of stuff around it. You want to make sure that you lay your pantograph down on the table so that your dogs aren't hanging from the top of the quilt upside down. Okay? If the quilt isn't directional, it's not going to matter that way, but you're still going to want them to go horizontally across the quilt rather than up and down. Same thing as if you had a pantograph with some birds on some branches. Well, we don't want our birds hanging off our branches. They'll all fall off. So you have to think about those things. The other thing you need to think about when it comes to pantographs like that, any one of these ones, is the way it is spaced within the boundary lines. Now, for those of you who haven't seen that pantograph video, I do talk about creating your boundary lines, and then you can see right on the back with your tape where you have to quilt inside where your quilt is. That didn't make any sense, but you know what I mean. Once you've got your boundary lines, we are then going to shift the pantograph back and forth until we get a nice even spacing down the sides. Especially if you have a quilt that's got, say, plain borders where you're really going to see the design. You want to make sure that you don't have half a dog's face over here or maybe just an ear, but on this side you've got his whole face and then part of the other ear. Okay? I do have some examples. I got to click a button. So this pantograph is called Paisley Park. It's actually one of my designs. But if you notice the red arrows, the one Paisley is miles away from the outside edge, yet on the right side, it's hugging. So it's just kind of disproportionate. If I switch and shift it just that little bit, now it's more balanced and it's going to sit nicely on the quilt, and it's going to look the same, and it's going to look even. Another example is this one. This is called La-Di Dot. And if you notice how far away from the edge of the quilt on the left side that one little leaf is, and on the other side that same leaf is way away from the edge and it's all sort of squashed, right? So if we shift, now it's nicely balanced. Our leaves are sort of sitting at the same, and we've got the same amount of design on the inside of the quilt, and it'll look nice on either side, and it'll look like you paid a little bit of attention and put some thought into where the design is sitting. Another example is this pantograph. This is called Razor Tie, and it just sort of looks like razored bow ties. On the left, I've got a little bit of a curl, and the bow tie is sort of, a couple of inches, 3-4 inches in from the left-hand side. But then on the right-hand side, if you look at it, there's only half of a bow tie. So if we just shift it just a little bit, now I have the bow ties rocking and rolling, up and down. They're evenly spaced, and we've got the same amount of space between the full bow ties in the center of the quilt with partials on the edge. Make sense? Cool, right? So just something to think about. Now, if I was quilting with the Scribbles design or the Any Which Way, or just those simple textures, shifting the design side to side isn't going to make any difference, really. This is very much just the same thing over and over and over. You could shift it a little bit, I suppose, but it's really not going to matter. And for sure, the Scribbles one isn't going to make any difference where this is sitting. It's just going to fall off all your sides, and it'll be fine wherever it sits. Okay, so it's just sort of the pictorial ones where you want to make a little bit more effort to make sure that they're sort of balanced on both sides. Now, I'm not looking at the chat yet. We'll do questions and answers in a couple of minutes, if that's okay. Okay, good. So we are going to play with, does everybody understand the whole orientation thing? Making sense? If not, type some questions in the comments. If we don't get to all the questions during the live feed, don't worry, because I can always answer them in the chat afterwards. I'll promise to get to everybody's questions. So that's all those pantographs. Put them back here. Pantographs are great, you know. They're a great tool if you're not comfortable free motion quilting from the front. You follow the little red light. They're consistent. They give you nice even stitching, perfectly balanced, spaced all the way down the quilt. You don't have to have any artistic skills or anything like that. But pantographs do actually start to give you muscle memory in making shapes and will help get you to the front of the machine if you want them to. Okay? So what I want to show you tonight is some ways to play with your pantographs and change them into whatever you want them to be. So I'm going to start with the Scribbles one. And I've already made some samples, and I'll show you those photos in a minute as we do them, as we go through them. We're going to draw on the plastic right over top of our pantograph on the back of the frame. Okay? On APQS machines, they come with a plastic cover that covers the pantographs and protects them, which is what it was designed for originally. However, it's a great place to play and change and mark and do all kinds of fun things. So we're going to start with the Scribbles pantograph. And there's nothing wrong with the Scribbles pantograph. It's awesome. But what if you wanted just a little bit extra in the pantograph? I'm going to use my dry erase marker, and grab yourself some thin ones. Excuse me. You want a thin tip. You don't want a great big fat chubby dry erase marker, because we're actually going to be drawing elements on top of the plastic, which we're then going to stitch out as if they were part of the pantograph in the first place. So nice fine lines. I like to use opposite colors, especially when, if you get really crazy and you're changing a lot of things. You don't want to just use a black one, because then it gives you the opportunity to get confused between the actual pantograph and your additions. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, any other color than black. It's easier to see, and it's easier to follow. Okay? When you draw it on here, you may find that they're not quite perfect. They may be a little shaky. Don't worry about it. I promise you, your quilting will be much smoother. So even if you draw a little spike and you waver a little bit and your spike's sort of a little bit, maybe a little off or a little wobbly, don't worry about it. When you're actually quilting, that will be nice and smooth. You're just going to arc out and arc back and keep going. Okay? So I've got Scribbles on here. I think maybe the first thing we could do is just add some spikes. So I'm going to follow and travel. We're going to pretend that this is the outside edge of my quilt. I'm just going to follow the traveling line with my marker, and on this one, every time I find a curve, let me get rid of that. There we go. Every time I find a curve, I'm just going to go in and do a little spike. Okay? So as I come inside this curve, I go in. I'm going to follow the curve around. I'm going to spike in. And I'm going to continue all the way in the area that I'm quilting. I'm going to do the same thing all the way in. You also want to make sure that you do your ghost row. And add those elements in there. Otherwise, you're going to have a ghost row that's all, original and plain. And then the rest of your quilt's going to be spiky. So I'm going to show you. This is the original scribbles. That's what it looks like. When we add some spikes, this is what we get. How cool is that? What if we added some circles? Now we've got a quilt full of bubbles. With this one, I added sort of a little S curve. I followed the same thing as I did with the spikes. I just followed it along. And instead of doing a spike, it was just a little S curve out, S curve back. When I get into this curve, S curve out, S curve back. S curve out, S curve back, and just keep going. And then you follow it along. And that one came out really cool. Now, that doesn't even look anything like scribbles anymore, but it looks awesome. I like it. Okay, now we're going to work with any which way. I'm just going to pull this paper out. Honestly, any which way, I could have gone crazy. They can see you now.
No. Hello.
I wasn't supposed to let anybody see her. This is Lydia, everybody. She's the panto puller. This any which way design is awesome, and I had to stop. I could have just kept going. It's so fun. It's by, I already told you, it's by Jessica Schick, and you can play so much with this design and change it in so many different ways. It's really, really cool. So when I was playing with it, I started with that spike, okay? So it's the same thing. We start with that, and on the inside of the curve, I just spike in and then get back on the line. Spike in, back on the line. In, back on the line. All the way along. So that's an example there. Now, I want you to look on this particular design. I did put the spikes on the outside, but I was also very careful to make sure that the spikes didn't go too far outside the boundaries of the original pantograph, so that there would be a problem with advancing, and I didn't change the actual size of the pantograph. I kept the changes within the boundaries of the original design. Okay, so that when it's stitched, there's the any which way stitched out by itself in its glorious original form. There it is with some spikes. Looks a lot different, doesn't it? Here I added a curl and a spike. Check that out. How cool is that? Then we added some circles. And it came out like that. And then I added some words. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute. Words are a wonderful way to really personalize a quilt and add some special little touches in there. You can hide little messages. You can put someone's name. So you got a little quilt for a little girl or a little boy. You can hide their name in there. You can hide little messages, put words, faith, love, hope, all those things. But you can use the pantograph at the back to do that. Even if you're good at free motion quilting, it's not always that easy from the front to be dancing along free motion and all of a sudden you want to you want to quilt the word friends. Well, that's great if you're doing it like you normally do writing, but what if you want everything facing opposite directions? It's pretty hard to just flip the brain and write something upside down and backwards while you're quilting without any stopping to think about which way you're going. But what you can do is you can either you can write it right over top of the plastic, which is fine if they're all going in the same direction. But if you want words going, on an angle, some are going to the right, some are to the left, some are upside down, some are flipped, so that it's sort of not directional when you're stitching it, the best way to do that is to write out your word. That says love. And I can do them in different sizes. I can do different words. You can have 40 different words if you want in your quilt. And what we're going to do is put it, you can tuck your word underneath your plastic, and you're just going to play with the orientation. So I want to make sure that I get this somewhere where it's going to fit and look good. Hopefully you can see that. It's right here. I'll draw a box around it. I hope you can see that on the camera. So then all I need to do is play with the original design coming around, because it still has to fit in with the design, but you want to be able to come into it, flawlessly quilt out the word, and then come out and then meet the pantograph on the other side somewhere, right? So this, I think, is going to, we got to figure that out. I think I can get that back there. So if I start here and I'm coming in, I'm going to cut this line just a little bit short, and I'll come in here. There's the L. I don't have to do the L again, or the word again. I can just kind of come up and around. And then I've done my E out here. Now, just because I've written it that way doesn't mean it has to stay that way, because I need it to fit in with the pantograph. So if I need to change that, I will change that once it's sitting on the paper. But it's not too bad, so I'm going to let it come out. And then I want to get back up here. So I'm just going to swing up and over. I'm going to follow the pantograph again. Now here it's going to disappear behind the pantograph, so I'm just going to do some funky something. There. It's angled out. and it all meets. So if I actually write over this so you can see it, there you go. Cool, right? And you can place as many of those over top of this pantograph as you want. You can turn them, and that's the nice thing about writing them on a piece of paper and then sticking them under the plastic. You can photocopy, do one, get the sizing right, play on the plastic, get the sizing right, and then do one and photocopy it and cut them all out. And then you know that they're all going to be consistent. And you can just drop them wherever you want going in different directions. Then when you're stitching the pantograph, the word is just like any other line on the pantograph. It's not the word love backwards and upside down. You're just following the curves and dancing through it. And then it just takes it to a next level, and you can just hide little messages in there and make it really cool, right? That's fun. Now, I'm going to show you my Paisley Park pantograph. I stitched that out and I put some words in it. I also took some lines away with that one, because when we're playing around with these pantographs like this, we don't always have to be adding things. We can actually take things away. If you think that the pantograph is a little too dense, or it's a little too much, or you don't quite want that much thread, you can eliminate lines. We don't always have to add them. We can take stuff away and make them more open and make them more simple. If you've got a design where a curl is coming in and coming back on itself and then twisting around, and eliminate it. Draw your line in, maybe just do a little hook and a flick and come back and skip the whole complicated part until your skills are at that level and until you're comfortable, that kind of thing. So again, think about taking things away as well, not just adding. So we're going to play with Paisley Park. As soon as my expert pantograph puller removes my panto. Oh, where'd it go? Oops. She's fired. She took them both. She took them both. The joys of live. Okay, so this one's called Paisley Park. This is one of my designs. It's very busy, but those who know me know I like heavy, busy quilting. So it's true to me anyways. But I do also recognize that it is quite busy, and this pattern is actually quite time consuming to stitch out. But it looks really cool. It's one of the ones that I would prefer. I like it running vertically on the quilt rather than horizontally. So again, I would load with the length of my quilt going this way and the width of my quilt going that way, so that all these Paisley things travel up and down the quilt rather than across. Okay? It looks like this. I don't know if I showed you already because it's live and I don't have a plan. So it looks like this. So we've got 2 Paisleys, then we've got some loops, then we've got some echo lines. There's a lot going on in this pantograph. All right. So if you don't want so many lines, we can take some away. All you have to make sure is that you are connecting at the end of the day, that you're still connecting your traveling lines. All right. So it will start on this one here. I think you can see me. There you go. We can see this one. So maybe these loops are too much. Okay? I want to ease it off a little bit. So I'm going to come in here, and instead of doing loops, I'm just going to do scallops. I'm following the line where the loops already are. So it connects to this point. You're going to travel in it just like normal. except you're just going to do some little scallops, and then I'm back to the other side to do the scalloped echo and the scalloped echo. And I would do that all the way across with each one. Follow in, just dip that line up in there as little or as much as you like, and carry on. Then what we get from the original design, there's the original one. It's pretty. Then we swap it over to some scallops, and then it looks like that. I like it like that, actually. So instead of adding lines, because it's already got a lot, we took some away. Pardon? It didn't show them? Oh, I think it did. Did everyone see it? That's the original one. And there it is with the little scallops instead of the loops. Now the next one I want to show you, I really like a lot. I added some words. And that's how it came out. Isn't that pretty? I was really happy with that. So for that one, all I did again, I wanted the words, and this is a perfect spot inside this big paisley. This is a great spot to put a word because there's lots of space. And as long as I can make the beginning of my word and the end of my word sort of fit within here so I can swing back around, it's going to work. So I started with the word love. So I'm coming in, this line comes this way, and then I just came in here, L-O-V-E. I don't have to meet this small paisley anywhere. All I have to do is make sure that I can get the end of my E back over to here to travel out of the pantograph. So I'm just going to swing it over and land right there. There. Now when I come in there, instead of doing that little paisley, I'm just going to L-O-V-E, swing back out, and then continue the panto. When I did the word mom, same thing. I'm coming in on this line here, and I'm going to do my M, and I'm going to fill up. I came in a little bit further because I still want to be fairly close to this line to get back to here. So I swung up into here, M, O, M, and then swing back and meet up with the point at the bottom of the paisley. And then again, you're just going to travel out and continue on. Ta-da! I love showing people that. Isn't that cool? Isn't that wonderful? Think of the possibilities with all kinds of pantographs. This one happens to work really well with the words because we've got that big space in the middle with that paisley. We could take out that whole paisley if you wanted to and forget all those lines, and as long as you go into that space and write your word and come back out of that space and land on that same line, you can continue traveling. You could put bubbles in there. You could put a spike in there. You could put anything. But I love the idea of having words going across. Oh my goodness. You could even write a little story. Oh no. It's happening. Once the portal opens. So you could take a pantograph like this, and each one could be a different word across the quilt. The next row, you could just wipe out those words, and put new words in the next row, and new words in the next row, and new words in the next row, all the way down until you have a story. That's a really good idea. Write that down so I remember. Oh, she did. She wrote it down. Okay. Oh, good. All right. I think that's it for this week. I have some really cool things to show you next week. We're going to play with pantographs again, and I'm going to show you how they can really give you a hand with some other things, and we'll play with those. So how about we do some question and answers? I have my laptop here, and I haven't watched it at all, so I don't know if anybody's asking questions, but I'm going to pay attention to this now. So if you have some questions, please answer, and we can do that, because I think I have shown you everything I wanted to show you. All right. So I'm going to go back a little bit. So it looks like everybody loves the ideas, which is nice. You know, playing with I just read somebody in there said that I'm creative. I am creative. However, I don't know that I was always creative. I think it's a learned thing. And I mean, when I got my very first longarm in 2006, I wasn't quilting like I do now, or like I did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It takes time and it takes practice. Unless you're a born artist, which I am not, all my skills are learned. I didn't come into this with a creative bone in my body. Well, maybe a little bit, because I was a hairstylist once and a makeup artist. So I did have a little bit, but I couldn't draw. I couldn't, make all the shapes that I make now, because I had never done them before. Again, the pantographs will give you muscle memory with basic shapes. And then this is a really cool way to get your creativity going with a little bit of it's like training wheels. Think of this as training wheels, playing with these pantographs. Now, I'm willing to bet when we close out tonight that you're all going to go to your pantograph stashes and start looking at your pantographs and seeing all kinds of possibilities that you never realized were there, or never thought were there, or didn't see before. So it'll be interesting to see how you realize you can change these things. And it's not a permanent change. You're just writing on dry erase. You're writing on plastic with a dry erase marker. If you don't like it, rub it out and try something different until you find that you do like it. It will build your creativity. The pantographs give you the travel lines to make it across the quilt. And as long as you're following those basic lines and you're just sort of dipping off the path a little bit, a little bit here, a little bit there. You're going for a walk in the woods and there's a little trail there, a little trail there, so you peek in. Just stay within the boundaries, the outer boundaries of the row, so that when you advance it, you haven't actually changed the size of the pantograph and you won't overlap. And again, watch my pantograph video for that, about how to advance and get perfect spacing. As long as you stay within the main lines and don't deviate too far off the path, they're going to advance just as beautifully as they would if you had left them alone and left them plain. Okay? All right, let's do some questions. Oh, Diana. Are you doing this weekly on Mondays? I wasn't going to tell them. My plan is to do every Monday night at 8 o'clock for the next 8 weeks. That is my plan. I have a lot to share, and I thought if I broke it up into smaller once a week increments, we could get together on a Monday night for an hour or an hour and a half. It would probably be good if it was within an hour or so, but if you're all here and you're asking questions, I'm fine to stay. I don't mind staying and answering questions. So yes, Diana, Monday nights at 8 o'clock for the next 8 weeks. Are you excited? I'm excited. Oh, there's Donna. Did everybody learn something? Hey, Helen. I'm so sorry. I have not been ignoring you. I promise I will get to those drawings for you. It's been a lot the last couple weeks. I know I messaged you and told you a little bit about, but it's been a lot the last few weeks, and I just can't keep up with everything. But I will promise I'll get to it. Deanna, Mountain Time. It's Eastern Standard Time. So right now it is 8:45. I'm 20 minutes from Toronto. So whatever time zone you're in, it'll be that. This is being recorded, and it will be on my channel, and you can watch it later. So if you can't make it on a Monday night, you'll be able to watch it after the fact. And type comments and questions in the section below, and I'll answer them after the live. That's fine. I don't mind doing that. I know everybody lives there. There's so many, you live everywhere in the world, and everybody's in a different time zone. So, hey, Kathy. Okay. Deb says, Deb Hagen. Hopefully I pronounced it right. My pantograph crossed itself after moving forward as you explained. What did I do wrong? I tore out and adjusted and turned out okay. Something to double check or advice. Okay. Unquilting is a pain, is it not? But a necessary evil. So the way I advance a pantograph, when I put it back here, and this is all in the pantograph video, when I have my pantograph on the back, and actually I'll flip the camera over so that you can see. Okay. So if this is the edge, I'm going to move my tape so you can see it. We'll put it about here, probably. There we go. So once I get my pantograph set up, I'm just going to pull it over just to make it easier for now. When I want to do my advancing, so once I've set my boundaries with my laser light, and I've adjusted my laser light for that top right-hand corner of the quilt, and then I go to the other side and I mark with the tape so I know I've got my three-sided box back here so I know what I'm doing. I do not move my laser light again for the entire length of that quilt. The laser light never gets adjusted to advance the quilt. All right? What I do is I find a place on the top, on the main row, and I'll generally choose a higher point, but it doesn't really matter. So on the tape, I can see there's this one scallop here. So that is what I would mark as my number 1 line. And then I find the same scallop on the ghost row, because the ghost row is repeat. It's a repeated row. So there's the scallop. I know you can't see it under the tape. You'll just have to believe me. There's the scallop. And then here's the same scallop right here on the pattern. So that's my number 2 line. So when I come along, I'll just turn my machine on so my laser light goes on. So when I come along, and I'm following my laser light, and I'm quilting my design, and I end up wherever it is that I end up on that particular thing, I drive up to the number 1, and I put my needle down. I make sure my needle is down, because when I advance my quilt back, I'm watching my laser light. So I'm going to go to the front, and hopefully you can see, I think you can see it. You can see my laser light on the number 1. I'm going to advance the quilt back, and I'm not watching the quilt at all. My needle is down, and I'm going to advance it back until the laser light is sitting right on the number 2 line. So I'm going to watch it go back. I overshot it. There we go. And we bring it back. So now my laser's sitting on the number 2. I know that my design is perfectly spaced, exactly the way it is on the paper. So as long as you always start at the number 1 and advance it back to the number 2, this spacing here that you see on the paper is what you're going to get. Now, if that's the way you're doing it, but you were having an overlap, then you either forgot to stitch to the number 1, or when you advanced it back, you didn't land on the number 2. You were either a little ahead of it. Now, if you're crossing over, you didn't advance far enough backwards, right? So that the original row didn't get put back where the ghost row is, so you're stitching over top. If you have a situation where you have a large gap or a bigger gap than normal, it means you went too far back, which means you probably overshot the number 2. Does that make sense? I'm not a fan, I know people do it. I've never done it this way, but I'm not a fan of advancing the quilt and then finding the laser and moving the laser. I don't really understand the concept. Once I've set my laser light for where my quilt is placed, I won't touch it. It doesn't get moved, it doesn't get adjusted until the next quilt. So hopefully that makes sense. Oh, thank you, Jean. Well, I'm glad you're here. Nice to meet you. I would love to go to Houston. Thank you for that. Hey, there's Vicky. Hey, Miss Vicky. Vicky's down in my area. She better come visit while she's here. Let me see. Question. Mavis has a question. I have a quilt to do with the words meow interspersed with something else. I use Quilt Path. Would it be easier to draw my own pantograph than to try it digitally? Do you digitize, Mavis? Because to change a digital design, you can't really change the digital. You'd have to redigitize it. Honestly, I would get the paper version and just do what I did here and hand guide it from the back. That's what I would do, because you don't want to digitally change somebody's design, right? Here we're just drawing on paper and changing it up. That would be the way I would do it anyways, because I do digitize and it's a lot of work. This is so much faster. Lucy says, I'm a newbie. Is there a video 101 pantograph? Yes. Watch my video called Pantographs Made Easy. It looks like this. I uploaded that in January, and it walks you through every step of the setup for the pantograph, how to mark the sides so you know exactly where your quilt is according to your laser light. It shows you exactly how to advance to get perfect spacing all the way to the bottom, and then it also teaches you what to do when you get to the bottom and how to cut the design off so that it fits on the bottom of your quilt. So go watch that video. Not now, wait till we're done. Denise says, next Monday is Thanksgiving. Are you doing a session? I am going to do next Monday because I am doing, I'm making our family Thanksgiving dinner on Sunday. It's the only day I can get all my children in the house at the same time. So Monday will be a regular day for me. I won't be at work during the day, but I will be here at night to do this. Thank you, Michelle. Michelle says my videos are helpful. I really hope so. When I started long arming, there was no YouTube. Actually, I don't even know if the internet was a thing yet. Well, yeah, I guess it was. It was, but it wasn't like it is now. And I'm self-taught. I had to teach myself everything. And the only way I learned anything was by doing it wrong 100 times. And it was real frustrating. But I got the hang of it slowly, and then I built my skills slowly, and now I get to help other people not struggle as much as I did when I started. So that's what I try to do. Denise asked, she said, this is great, thank you. And then she asked, how can a panto be done from the front? Is there a reason you want it to be done from the front? Do you not have, maybe you don't have back handles or something? I am going to show you in a couple of weeks how to use a pattern from the front using your laser light at the top of the machine. This is actually, this post here is not actually for our scissors and our handy dandy thread picks. It's meant for the laser light. It is a great place to hang our stuff, but you can use the lasers from the front. I would only use it to do a block. But if you're wanting to do something from the front, there are ways that you can get a pre-done design. You could chalk it on. You could get a pantograph. I told somebody to do this years ago, and she did, and she said it worked out great. So I've never actually tried it. It just was an idea I had in my head, and I thought, well, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, because she was actually working on a domestic machine. So she took her pantograph and then took it to her domestic machine, put a great big needle in, and stitched around the design with no thread, just to poke holes in the pantograph. And then she took it to her quilt, turned it upside down so the rough side is up, and then used the pounce powder and swiped the pounce powder and sort of used it as a stencil. And then, oh, excuse me. And then, 1 second. And then she had all the chalk dots that she could follow. And she just kept the pantograph like that. And as long as you swipe it on the rough side, you'll get enough chalk on the quilt top that you can actually see the lines. And then you could do it like that. And you could absolutely do the same thing from the front. Here's what you could do. This will work better. If you've got a long pantograph, you're going to lay it on the front of you're going to load your quilt. You're going to lay it on the front. I just got in some handy dandy stuff. So far I've tried it with rulers and it works awesome. Lydia, could you do me a favor, please, Lovey? Could you pass me that? See that can of stuff on the front desk? It's pink. Right by where the iPad thing is. See the cans with the pink? Yeah. You can use your long arm from the front to punch the holes in your pantograph. You're going to take your thread out. Thank you. This is called ODIF Grippy Non-Slip Coating. This is my new favorite thing. I've been spraying it on my long arm rulers and it actually sticks to my fabric, helps the ruler stick to the fabric. I've tried it with my stencils, my plastic stencils for registration lines, and it works for that too. If you lay your pantograph, load your fabric, lay your pantograph across, you may have to pin it. You don't have to use this stuff, actually, that's silly. You can pin it so it stays in place. No thread in your needle, and you're going to guide your machine using, long, if you've got a dial on your machine where you can slow it down to like 7 stitches per inch so you get wide spacing. Follow across, quilt through the paper, and you'll be quilting through the quilt sandwich there too, but there's no thread, so you're not making a mess or anything there. Quilt through it. That's going to punch all the holes in it. You followed the row. Then you can turn it over, use the pounce powder, and pounce it on each row and work from the front all the way down. That sounds like it would work. I think that would work. Try that and let me know if it works. I'm pretty sure that would work. Lucy says, I'm new to Pantographs. Which designs do you suggest to start? You know what? Start with simple texture designs. stay away from, and I don't want to, no, I don't want to say that. You have to work within your comfort zone, but I also don't want you only ever using the same pantograph. I have some rental customers who come and they always want to use the same pantograph because they know it and they're used to it, and I have to sort of gently ease them into other things. The Scribbles is fabulous. It's that stipply. There's another one called Bumpity that's quite nice. It looks a little, it's still stipply, but it looks more like puzzle pieces, which is nice. The Any Which Way is fabulous. It's super easy. It's just arc, 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 right? Super simple. That'll get you used to moving the machine. They're very forgiving. Pantographs that are just, you know, a curve, giving you a little bit of movement. Bolero is a really nice one. I don't know off the top of my head whose it is, but it is at Urban Elements, and it's called Bolero. Actually, I have it. Give me 1 second. It is by Sarah Ann Myers. I really like this pantograph. I have the digital version of it as well, and I really quite like it. It's really funky. It sort of is Dr. Seussy to me. And this pantograph, I like it horizontal. So I would load the width of my quilt this way and the length of my quilt that way, so that these S curves are all up and down. I'm not too much of a fan of it going across this way. I just think it looks better. I think it's meant to be up and down like that anyway, but this one is super forgiving as well. So just start with simple. When you start getting into, you know, ribbon curls that are crossed over and you're going in and then you have to remember what line you're coming out of, those ones maybe move into those ones a little bit, or pantographs that have backtracking. Wait till you're comfortable with the machine, maybe, and then just go for it. What's the worst that's going to happen? You know what we do here? When my people come and they're brand new and they have their either their certification class, or if they're trying a new pantograph for the first time, this is what we do. I set them up. Their pantograph is all set up. They're all ready to go. They're basted, ready, laser lights done, borders or boundaries are done on the back. They know exactly where they're going to stitch. Then I unthread the machine to just pass the tension assembly, and I take the thread, or I take the needle out of the machine, and then they stand back here. The machine is running. We turn it on so they get the feeling of the needle moving up and down and the machine, you know, working. The machine is going to feel a lot different if you're just doing this than if you're actually running the machine and stitching. So what you can do is take the needle out, run the machine, and go back and forth as many times as you want till your shoulders relax. You take your death grip off your handles, no white knuckles, okay? Loose grip. The looser you are, the nicer your pantograph is going to look. And you can go back and forth as many times as you like until you're comfortable and you know you've got it down, and you've got your shifting your body weight across, and all that kind of stuff is comfy. Put the needle back in the machine, thread it back up, and then hit it with the thread. And then you've already got that warm up, and you're not going to have a couple shaky rows before you like it. Know what I mean? So try that. Let's go down a little bit. What's the largest pantograph I can do on a 22-inch throat Lenny? The new Lennies have 16 and a bit inches of quiltable space. So get whatever one you like, because you'll have space. There's a really nice one, Time Warp, it's called, is really cool. It's 14 and a half, 14 and 3/4, I think, something like that. The 22-inch Lenny, the My 19 machines, have lots of space. So you'll have lots of room for whatever pantograph you want. Kathy says when you turn it over, it's backwards. Do you mean when I was talking about putting the paper on here? But if it's just texture, like this isn't going to matter if I flip it this way or this way. Even if it was the dogs. Where'd they go? Oh, please don't tell me they fell down the back. That would be awful. It would be opposite, Kathy, but I don't think, only if it had, you know, words or something in it, then the words would be backwards. But if it was just like simple shapes or flowers or something, it wouldn't matter that they were reversed, I don't think. I'd have to think that through. Good point. Yes. Susan asked, any tips you have for loading a quilt lengthwise, parallel to the rollers, but getting it centered widthwise on a pieced back? Okay, so what I do, if I've got somebody gives me something and they want it, I can get a quilt centered within 1/4 of an inch of the backing, if that's what if they want it centered. So I'll take the backing and I fold it in half and I put a pin in the center, and then I fold the half in half and then I put a pin there. So I've put it in quarters, okay? Then I take the quilt top and I do the same thing. So I'm marking that in quarters. And then when I load it, I get the backing loaded. I'm making this sound like brain surgery, aren't I? In my head, it sounds like it's coming out like brain surgery. It's really not. What you want to do is find the center of the backing and the center of the quilt. And then you also want to find from the center to the edge, right? You're going to mark those two spots with pins. And then when you load your backing, you're going to know exactly where to put your quilt top, the top of your quilt top, so that you're the same space from the top as you're going to be from the bottom. Finding the center this way is easy because it's right in front of you, right? So you'll measure your backing and you'll find the center of your backing. And then when you lay your quilt top on, you'll have folded the quilt top and put a pin in the middle. And then you lay the center pin on your quilt top. When you lay it down, you're going to let it line up with those top pins on the backing. And your center pin in your quilt top is going to match the center mark on your backing in the middle. And then you will be perfectly centered all the way down to the bottom. I've done it thousands of times. It works like a charm. Penny asks, are straight line pantos harder to do than curvy ones? No. No, I don't think so. I have one called Jagged Stipple, and it's basically a stipple, but it travels in the shape of a stipple, but it's up, 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 up. They're all sharp lines. Now, it depends how long the lines are. But no, I think you'll be fine. I think you'll be fine. There's one of my favorite pantographs is called Bauhaus. Again, it's an Urban Elements pantograph. I can't remember whose it is, but it's on there, and it comes in a petite and in a regular size. And it's got a soft curved corner, but it's all straight lines, and they sort of kind of go in like this. It's lovely, and it's so easy. So easy. So. Now, when it comes to the curvy, whirly, twirly things, remember, loose grip. I say it all the time. We are not on the behemoth at Canada's Wonderland. We're not on a runaway train. We don't need to grip this like our lives depended on it. No white knuckles. We want a nice, loose grip. Just fingertips. These machines in particular are extremely light and extremely smooth. We don't have to manhandle anything to get them to move, okay? if you've got a nice loose grip with your fingers, your wrists are soft, your forearm is soft, your triceps are soft, and so are your shoulders. Okay? It's a lot easier to make soft, flowy lines and little flippy curls and all that kind of stuff if you've just got a hold on the machine like this. If I'm holding it with a death grip, nothing's going to be smooth because everything's jacked tight all the way up to your shoulder and you won't get any soft curvy lines at all. Okay? The other thing, don't try to cling to the lines on the pantograph 100% of the time. You need to treat these things like they're a guide. You want to be close, but if you're trying to, if you're going slow with your death grip and you're trying never to waver off that pantograph line, it's going to look like crap on the front. It's going to be all shaky and wobbly and it won't be pretty. Swing around, be close to the lines. I promise you they're going to look great. You just have to relax and loosen up. Nobody's going to take the paper pantograph and lay it on top of the quilt after the fact and say, oh, well, it's okay, but on that curl you were like 1/4 of an inch out, or you flicked a little too far on that one. It's never going to happen. The looser you are and the less worried you are about staying on that line, the bang on the whole time, the better it's going to look on the front. I promise. Okay, Deborah says, very old machine, manual only. Nothing wrong with manual mode. I use it all the time. Okay. It's Deborah. Yes, I serviced that machine for you, didn't I? Can you advance manually using the same needle in aiming you used? Oh, absolutely. It's the same thing. Now, your pantographs are going to be smaller because the throat on your machine is smaller, so your pantographs are going to be smaller. But that whole marking the 1 and the 2 and rolling it back is absolutely the same. It doesn't matter that you don't have a stitch regulator on that machine. Any possibility of a session on tension? Asks Judy York. Yes, ma'am. Let's talk about tension one night. We can do that. It's nice to see you too, Margaret. Thanks for coming. Yeah, and that's great, honestly. If there's things that you'd like to talk about or, specific things that you'd like to learn, if I know enough about it, I'm happy to do a video on it. So let me know what you're interested in. I mean, I have my agenda in my head and written in my book about what I'd like to do, but if I get an overwhelming, an overwhelming number of people that want to learn something specific, and I have enough knowledge in that to feel like I can teach you something, then absolutely. Yep, I'm good. Brenda says, does your YouTube channel have a name? Yes, it's just Whirls and Swirls Quilting. The same one that you're on now while you're watching. So if you subscribe and hit the bell icon, then you will get notifications with every video. And there's a lot of videos on my channel. For those of you who are new here, there's 497. So this would be 498 if my calculations are correct. There's a lot of videos on here for you to watch. It's a lot. So if you can stand to listen to my voice for that long, make yourself a cup of tea and get comfy. I'm just scrolling through trying to find some questions. Everybody's so supportive and you guys are all so kind. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. Aw, thanks. Lee says he enjoyed every minute and he's learning new things every time he talks to me. I hope you and Freddie are getting along well. That beautiful machine. It's nice to see you here. Oh, that's a good question, Elizabeth. Does the vibration ever move my laser light? No, it does not. No. Our laser lights are on a post here. It goes into the side of the machine with a 1/2 inch nut, so that's super tight. And then when I adjust it, there's a knob here, and I just loosen that, and then I position it where I want it, and then I tighten that knob up quite tight, nice and as tight as I can with my hand, and you'll be fine. Yeah, it shouldn't. It should never move. Maybe you just need it a little tighter. That's probably it. And if you're thinking that your laser light is actually really tight, then check the post, because it's going to be on a post. I don't know what kind of machine you have, but it will be on a post that's attached to the machine. If your laser light is shifting and it's tight on the post, then check that the post is properly and tightly into the threads in the hole on the side of the machine. Okay, I'm going to go backwards. Judy says, do you think extending changes beyond the outline could provide creative opportunities? Would there be any technical issues? You know what? Experiment. I wouldn't want you to go too far out, because you have to remember when you're drawing on here. Where's one of my small bits? Do we know what happened to the small pieces? What did I do with them? All right, doesn't matter. We'll use this. Oh, this is them. Okay, when I'm playing on here, I'm playing on the main row. I have the ghost row here and the ghost row here, right? So if I came out, and when my little line that I'm adding in, if it touches or crosses over the ghost row, then you are going to have to change and monkey with the spacing. Because when you're following, when you're advancing, you want the spacing to look the same as it is on the paper, because this is how it should be spaced, right? This is how it makes it look nice and nested. If you open up that gap to add a little thing here or there, that won't overlap, but then you're going to have a bigger gap in the other spots, and it might not look so good. So that's why I said when you're changing and you're doing things in here, I like to come inside, right? Do most of them in here. In here, sure, knock yourself out. Put one in there, because it doesn't go up into the ghost row on either side. So it shouldn't make any difference that way. Just be careful when you're popping yourself out, because if you've marked your 1 and your 2 and this thing comes up to here, then that's outside the boundary of where you're advancing, if that makes sense. Brenda says, no sleep tonight. My brain will not shut off. You're welcome. That's what it's like to be me. Okay. I'm just scrolling through. Is there any more questions? I know we've gone well past the hour. Yes, Pat. Pat says, cool story quotes in a baby quilt. Why not? Write it out on paper, put them wherever you want in the Pantograph, and just stitch them out. I'd like a photo of that when you're done, please. Dana says, so you're live weekly. I am going to do 8 weeks of live demos and question and answer periods for the next 8 weeks. Tonight is week 1. So next week we will be discussing pantographs again. I'm going to show you some other really cool things you can do. And then the week after that will be something completely different. Did I get to everybody's questions? I'm sorry that I'm scrolling through, but I missed a lot while I was yapping. Okay. Kathy, thank you. Everyone's so wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. This is wonderful. Suggestions on where to get the plastic. Well, on APQS machines, the plastic comes on the table, but you can get, that clear, just like a clear vinyl from Home Depot or Fabricland, like it's for, the F store. Yep, you can get vinyl there. You can also get it at Home Depot, and you could just tape it with clear tape to the top. You want to only tape to the top so you can lift it up. On our frames, the plastic has a split in the middle, so it's easy to lift one side and tuck the pantograph under, and then lift the other side and tuck it under there, so you're not fighting with a great big thing of plastic along 12 or 14 or 10 feet, however many feet you've got. Yeah, but anything. And then dry erase markers. Okay? In the event that you accidentally use a Sharpie marker, ask me how I know. Alcohol will take it off your plastic. Barbara said, I feel they help our hand-eye coordination. Excellent skill builder. I'm assuming you mean pantographs, and yes, they are. They are a wonderful skill builder. They really help you learn those shapes. Okay, Denise loves using scribbles. I love that pantograph. My rental customers love that pantograph. It looks good. It fills the space. New Zealand. Hi from New Zealand. Oh, there's Barbara. Hi, Barbara. Beginner's class. Missy, I know you're loving your Lucy, but you need to come in and have your new owner's class. Plus, I want to see you. Okay. All right. I will scroll down. My gosh, everybody's from so far away. This is wonderful. From everywhere. Steven says, excuse me, there are men here too. I'm sorry, guys. I know you're here, and I love you both. Toronto, I'm just flicking through. Okay. This is wonderful. All right, I'm going to flip down to the bottom just to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Tina, I just got my Freddie and I'm intimidated, but hopefully these tips will get me going. Tina, do not be intimidated by your machine. You got this, girl. I promise. One day at a time. You can't break him. Well, technically, I guess you could, but we can fix him, so it's no problem. Just relax and have fun. It's supposed to be fun. I know it has some stress. You know, everything's got some stress. There's a learning curve. Watch lots of videos and just take time to play. Load up some stuff that doesn't matter. Just play. Just play. Dance. Write your name. Doodle a flower. Just play. Okay? And you'll spend many, many, many years loving that machine. I promise. I promise. Okay. Marilyn asks, great info. Why would my quilt travel a little to the left as I advance? Okay. Are you using your quilt top roller or are you floating? I float. Okay. So I use on the front of on my quilt top roller, once I've loaded my quilt and I've got it where I want it and I've basted my three sides, I use my C-clamps and I clamp them onto my quilt top roller because I don't use it for my quilt top. I let it float. And I will put a C-clamp. They're on my website. They're awesome tools. These are one of my most favorite things, and my most used things are these things and this thing. This is a thread pick. It's the best $9.99 you will ever spend in my store. This is awesome. I've used one of these since 2007, and it is so awesome for pulling out stitches. I know some of you have this already, and you'll know how much you love it. All right, so these are just little clamps. They're C-clamps. They're on the website. They're 6 in a bag. Once I've loaded the quilt, and this is in my Pantograph video anyway, so check that one out. I will put them on the roller, on the quilt top roller like that, and I'll line them up with inner borders on the outside, the seam line. So I'll have one on each side where the seam line is for the inner borders. If it's a larger quilt and there is a center seam, I'll put one on the center seam. If there are no borders, if it's one of these, modern ones with, you don't have any seams coming down here and you've just got the edge, I will use the edge if I don't have any choice. But seeing as the outside edge of a quilt is the least straight of the quilt, I would always prefer to use an inner seam. So I put the clamps on, matching those seams right from the get-go. Every time I advance my quilt up, before I baste, you smooth everything out, you give your batting a little tug, make everything nice and straight. As you're smoothing your quilt, you're making sure that those seam lines that you've put the clamps in front of, everything lines up every time you advance the quilt. That way, the quilt won't start to drift. It doesn't have a chance to start to drift to the left or to the right. Okay? And you always want to work from the middle out when you're smoothing. I don't want to see anybody grabbing a hold of their quilt top on the edge and just yanking to get it to, tweak out a little bit further, because all you're doing then is stretching the 3 or 4 inches of the edge of your quilt. You want to work from the middle and just sort of smooth it out so they go out, or you just kind of tweak it in to make them come in so it all lines up, and that will keep your quilt straight all the way down. So watch the Pantograph video, because I talk about that in there, and I also talk about making sure that you've originally loaded the quilt straight as well. Okay? Oh, thank you, Sandy. So Bauhaus is Patricia Ritter. That's her design. And again, they're all on Urban Elements website. Ellen says, drive your machine like you drive your vehicle. Easy hand on the wheel machine. Yes. Yep. Gentle grip. Gentle grip. Right, no handles or space behind machine. Okay, so Denise, try that. Try that trick with the Pantograph. See how that works and let me know. All right, so I just saw, Suze, I hope I answered your question about centering. I just saw your second thing, getting it centered going this way. If you mark the center and then the center, you'll be able to pin it to the top, and you'll know that you're spaced in the middle of from the top to the bottom. Yeah, and if you need more confirmation on that, you and I can have a video call, okay? And I can actually show you. I'll get somebody's quilt out and I'll actually do a demo. Oh, maybe it should be a demo one night. That would make sense. Okay, guys. Ladies and gentlemen. Let's end with a 2018 Lenny. How do I figure out if my Panto will work on a queen quilt versus a lap quilt? I have run out of room. Quilting the larger quilt. Yeah, because it gets, because you're starting to eat in with a quilt that big. So I would stick with a pantograph that's about 10 inches, like maximum 10 inches, so that it just gives you all that extra space when you get to the bottom. I wouldn't use, don't go bigger than a 12.5 on a larger quilt. Margaret's looking forward to trying the needle piercing trick with the pantographs working from the front. Good. Please let me know how it works. Please let me know how it works. Okay, everyone, I'm going to say goodnight. It's 9:30. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Again, if you've got any ideas on demos we can do on Monday nights, like I said, I've got my list, but I'm always willing to throw something else in as long as I feel I know enough about the subject to stand here and talk to you about it. So thank you again for coming. I really appreciate it. And everybody stay safe and healthy and happy. Kiss and hug the people you love. Just kiss them now while you can. Good night, everybody. Thank you.